Recording in progress.
Hey everyone, so this is going to be part of the Web Extra, and this is also going to be a little bit of a homework help for what you're going to be doing for homework, or for lab number one, I should say. We're going to be using Microsoft Excel, and we're going to be using that to do, or you create something called pivot tables. The data that I'm going to give you is actually student level data from one of the universities or colleges I've collected the data from. And part of your job is going to be to go in and look at how well students do in all these different classes. I've got it set up so that you can fairly easily look at whether or not a student passes or not, whether or not a student gets an A or a B or a C in a particular class, that sort of thing. And I'm going to have you start trying to make some decisions about um, what classes you should have taken and when you should have taken them and stuff like that, based on the data that we're going to be giving, or I'm going to be giving you. Because I want to start off with basically a bare screen so that hopefully you can follow along with me. This is going to come out as a uh, Excel file, like I said. So I actually need to go in and find the file that I want to use somewhere in here. Got a whole bunch of stuff in here, which is part of the fun stuff that you guys get to deal with as well. Let's see, documents. See, so just so we're clear, I have a hard time trying to figure out where I stored some of this stuff myself. Was it stats material? All right. So here I've got something that says EMISH student data. And this is going to be similar to the type of data that you're going to get, but I'm going to give it to you from a different place. And sorry. Once I've clicked on it, everything here is going to open up. And you can see uh, like the start date here goes all the way back to 2010. I believe the data that I've got here, if we were to look at all of it, is a 5 or 10 year period at EMU. This is essentially all the data from chemistry, physics, math, and some business stats classes. If you look at the data that's on here, term code, don't really care about that. And then term desk, I know what desk means, but basically tells you the semester when this data was collected. We have here what's called a student identifier. So you can think of this as like, say, your student number or your social security number or whatever. Each one of those numbers actually represents an actual physical student uh, that took a particular class. The student IDs here are made up, but they are consistent with whoever the student happens to be. So example, if I was one of the students that in this data set, my student ID number will not be in that list, but I may be identified as, say, student 00001 or something like that. In every class that I took, every time I took the class, you're going to see student 0000001 and then all the information next to it. So some of the data here is a bit redundant. So what term did you take it? When did the term start? Who cares? Course number here. This tells you what class we're actually dealing with, and I'll try to make this a little bit bigger, so hopefully we can all take a look at this. And what you're going to be using is basically this course date, and then here I've got professor identifier. So again, if you look at like these numbers right here, these are all students that took class with whoever this professor is, okay? So we actually get to see how well students do with this data anyway, based upon who the professor is. So what we really need to worry about here is course, professor ID, uh, has the class been taken before? N means no, a Y means yes. It doesn't tell us how well, or it doesn't tell us how many times a student took a class. Uh, as when I was working in institutional research at Henry Ford College, one of the things we would actually do when looking at data like this is try to find uh, a student, what's the highest number of attempts a student has made on a class. And I know a lot of you with say a class like this or some other classes, you're like, well, I need it for my degree, so I have to take it and do well in it. If I don't pass it the first time, take it a second time. If you can't pass it the second time, maybe change majors or something like that. But there are actually some students, the record that I had was this, found a student that took the same class 17 times. Seriously, 17 times. And because they had a grade, that means they paid for the class 17 times. So anyway, uh, any student that has a grade code of A or A minus is going to be in this pass A column. Students that have a B plus B or B minus will be in the pass B column. Students that have a C or a C plus in the class will be in the pass C column. And then this right here is just, did the student pass, yes or no? The WFID thing here, it's an acronym for withdraw, incomplete, failed, or a D. So if a student didn't do well in a class, they may have passed it, but if they got a D in the class, usually that's not good enough to bond to future coursework. So all the D students will be in there. Any student that failed the class will be in there. Any student that withdrew from the class will also be in this column. In terms of what type of data are we dealing with here? Because pass is either one means you passed with whatever grade it is, and a zero means you did not pass. I'm not saying you failed, I'm just saying you did not pass. We can think of these as being dichotomous outcomes. So every student that got an A is going to have a one in this column, zero elsewhere. Uh, pass with the B, a one in the column, zero elsewhere. So here you can see that this student got an A, so they have a one here to say they passed with an A. And they have a one over here to say they passed the class overall. Uh, the B and the C, we'll see those pop up every once in a while as well. But with the data that we're going to be dealing with, so this is going to be the time when you probably want to make sure that you have on one side of the screen the video, and then say on the other side of the screen the Excel spreadsheet that you're going to be working with. And I'll give you a second to get that Excel sheet up. So first thing that we want to do is if you take your cursor, you hopefully can see in cell A1, there's the white cross. When I put it up in the corner like that, and I click on there with the left mouse button, you can see that it just basically highlighted everything. So if we were to zoom out, what you're going to see is that all the columns, whether they have data in them or not, are highlighted. And you'll see that we can go all the way down to the end of the data set here. So all the way down to column 128,209, meaning there are 100,208 unique student records here. So this is a lot of data. Uh, get it all the stuff highlighted like we have here. And to do these pivot tables, this is going to be something that is actually standard on Microsoft Excel. So at least on the desktop version, I'm not sure about how well this works using the web applications. I know that the web version is a little bit different than this, so you have to be prepared for that. But you go to Insert, and you look over here where it says Pivot Table. Once you've got all the data you want to work with, so just click up in the upper right-hand corner, all the blank spaces, they're not going to matter much. We want to create a pivot table. And hopefully you can see that this new screen pops up and it says a pivot table from a table or range, telling us the data that we're dealing with here. The table range, it's already set up in there. You can see that it's kind of truncating things at the end column here because that's where the last bit of data is at. Then it says choose where you want the pivot table to be placed, new worksheet or existing worksheet. I always go with the new worksheet. And once you've done that, you can come down here and click on OK. The next thing that you see is going to be everything that just popped up here. So what the pivot table does is we can actually get it to do math problems without having to do any programming or much work at all. For this, I want to look at, say, pass with an A, pass overall, and I also want to look at the number of students uh, that were in each one of these classes. So by clicking on those two things, it says right here, sum of pass A, and then it just says sum of pass. That's not what we want. And you can see up here all the different numbers here. So this is saying out of all the students that we had, out of all 128,000 students, 35,329 students got an A, and 95,130 students actually passed. Those are numbers. Okay. Now let's try to make them useful numbers. All right. So the first thing we want to do here is where it says sum of pass A. I'm going to click on the little drop-down menu here. And you can see that this whole new thing just popped up on top of that. You want to go to Value Field Settings. Then you can click on that. Hopefully you can see that there's a new column or new window that just popped up, Value Field Settings. It says Custom Name Sum of Pass A. Based on the data that was in that Pass A column. And what we actually want the average. And you can see up here that it changed from sum of pass A to average of pass A. So that's what we want. So if you take a look in the upper right or upper left corner here, and I click on OK, you can see that the values changed. Try to make this a little bit bigger so hopefully everyone can see it. So this is telling us that 27.556% of all students that took math, chemistry, physics classes at EMU got an A, which doesn't sound too bad. Now we need to go back. We need to do the same thing for sum of pass. So I'm going to click on here again. Go to Value Field Settings. I'm going to click on there. And again, I'm going to look at average because I want to know the average pass rate for some of these different classes with some of these different professors. And I'm going to click on OK. And you can see here that about 74.2% of all students at EMU actually pass their classes, which is pretty good. Now we need one more thing here. Because I've already clicked on pass, I can't, if I click on it again, it actually just took that away. So if I click back on it, it's back to the sum of pass. We need to change that. So going back, change that to average, click on OK. Now I get to highlight pass one more time and drag it down here. And again, it's going to do sum of pass. Click on this again, value field setting. And this time we're going to look at count. So this is telling us that there are 128,208 student records in this data set. Now, if we wanted to, we're going to look at course. I'm going to click on that and drag this down here to rows. What we have here is for Chem 101, says 25% of students get an A in that class, and about 79.5% of the students actually pass that chemistry class. And there are a total of 1,307 student records for that particular class. Come down here. These three classes happen to be business stats classes through the business school at EMU. And you can see the percentage of students that get an A in those classes and the percent of students that actually pass those classes, as well as the number of students that have taken each one of those courses. And then here you can look at all these different math classes. You can see here that like math 110 has about 16,000 student records in it. 33% of the students get an A, 75% of the students or so actually pass these courses out of about 16,000 students that attempted the class. We can look at this one more time. And where was it? So taken before. Now, one of the weird things here is if I drag this down and I drop it in underneath where it says course, what just happened is it's now breaking down all of these classes to say these are how, or this is how well students did the first time they took it. This is how well the students did if they had to retake the class. If you notice, again, in this Chem 101, about 83% of the students passed it the first time. Only 62% of the students passed it the second or third or fourth or fifth time. Each one of these right here is a unique student. Down here, this 219, that's actually all the different student records. So if a student took a class 4 times, one of their records will be here. They'll have 3 records down here. It's just how this stuff works. You can look at all this stuff. You can see for all the different classes that are being offered. So looking again at these business classes, you can see that 67% of the students passed the first time, 54 or 55 to 56% of the students passed it if they had to retake it, but there aren't that many students that retook it. Same thing here. Students that are retaking the class tend not to do as well, which can be a bit of a bummer. And that's something that goes on over and over and over again in these or with these classes, or in general anyway. I mean, look at the difference here. 93% passed the first time, 70% passed the second time. But again, not many students. So as we're going through all of these, you can see how it's broken down. Have they taken it before? Yes or no? So one of the things you're going to do is you're going to choose, you're going to get a list of all the different, you're going to eventually see a list of all the different classes that are offered. You're going to have to choose a couple of those classes that you're interested in. And then you're going to look at and start giving me some information. Just as an example, if I asked you, or if you chose say Chem 115, I would ask you what percent of students passed the class. You'd say 73.7%.
Right.
How many students took the class? 1,759. How many of those students actually got an A overall? You can see that it's 28.9%. If we break it down to how quickly or how many students got an A, percent of students that got an A the first time they took it, 31%. How many got an A the second time or more they took it? You see that it's under 10%. So 76% of the students that passed it originally. Meanwhile, those that retook it, only less than 50% retook or were able to pass it. So these are some of the issues that are going to be coming up. If I take this class taken before and I make it before the course, what we've now done is I'm now looking at how did students do the first time they took the class. So it's a little bit different thing. And then later on here, you can see how well did the students do subsequent times when they took the class. Now, one other thing that we can do here is I can also drag in a professor identifier. If I put that in between class taken and course, you can now see how students did with each one of these professors based on the math class that they took or whatever class they took. So like this professor here, all these different chemistry classes, you can see that this Chem 124, they do a little bit better than Chem 123. So same thing here with the different math classes, 74% to 82%.
I always print it there, because that's the one.
If I drop this
That's the big one.
below there, we're now breaking it down by course, and then you can see all the different professors that taught the class and how well students did in that.
Right.
So again, let's say we're looking at Chem 115 is one of the classes you're interested in.
That's over here.
What you're going to do is end up taking all of this data, highlight it, and then you can copy it. I'm going to open a new sheet and I'm going to paste values.
Yeah,
Make this a little bit bigger too. And what we really want here is to sort all these things out and sort them out by the number of students that took this class. So to do that, I have to highlight all the columns that I want to look at. I can come up here to where it says sort and filter. I'm going to do a custom sort and then sort by this last one and do it largest to smallest. All right. So these professors down here that taught less than 100 students, we don't really need to be worried about them. But looking at all these professors that are left over, we notice here that this professor, 59% of their students get that A, 89% of their students pass. They've taught 150 students. Meanwhile, the professor that's right beneath them, 27% of their students get an A, and 60% of their students pass overall. So if you had a choice between this professor or this professor, who would you rather have? Probably this one, right? A lot greater chance of passing, a lot greater chance of getting an A and all that. But looking at, say, these two professors right here, or say even these three professors right here, the chances that you're going to pass with them are going to be all pretty much the same. But you notice the one at the top here, you're much more likely to get an A with that professor. So again, if we're going to make if those are your three choices and you had this, let's say you had this information. So we're saying you have to take Chem 115 and you have your choice of those three professors. Who are you going to take? If all you want is to pass the class, it doesn't really matter. But if you're looking to get a really good grade in the class, probably actually want to go with that professor, right? So these are some of the decisions that you're going to have to make. Again, trying to do all this stuff here, it does take some practice. I'm trying to make this as say as easy as possible for all of you. We can, the way that you put things in here, that can determine how things pop up on the screen. So if you look at how I've got it set up right here, that's about the right way to do it. Now, if we flip that back, you can see here, this professor has taught a lot of different math classes, but in particular, they've taught quite a few students in Math 104, 108, and 210. So if you were asking the question, if you're going to take a math class with this professor, which class would you rather take? The one where only 46% of their students will pass, or the one where 84.5% of their students will pass? And about half of them will actually get an A. So clearly, I'm going to take that math class with them, right? And what you're going to find here is that a lot of the professors, there'll be some classes where students do really well in their classes. There are going to be some classes where students do really, really poorly. So if you're trying to choose a professor, it's not good enough to say, just go to ratemyprofessor.com or whatever and see what the professor's rating is on there. You need to be aware of what the class is that you're taking with them. Because like we just showed with the one professor here, less than half their students pass that one. And actually a higher percentage of students get an A in this class than pass the other class. So these are things that are going to happen. And it's going to be your job to go in and find who is the best professor for some of these different classes. There are going to be some restrictions on that. Like the professor has to have taught more than 100 students. Where does the 100 come from? We'll actually get into that a little bit later. But mostly it gets down to, if you look at, say, this class right there, where they taught 15 students, that basically means they only taught one section of it. And I don't want to judge someone based on one time. We need to make sure that they've taught several of these sections. So with the pivot table, you can get all the information that you need. I will have the actual questions done, and then if you have any questions, we can talk about it either before class or after class. All right. So happy hunting with this.